want to spend a little time on two words: still waters. Versions of those words came out of Psalm 23, verse 2b. He leads me to refreshing water. That's what the NET says. Gene Peterson in the Message says, you find me quiet pools to drink from. Still waters. Two little words, full of context and meaning in this land of southern Israel. Before I jump into it, I'm going to be drawing upon lots of really good visuals, and I need to give a shout out to Todd Bolin here at BiblePlaces.com. I've drawn upon, once again, his marvelous resources of images, 20 to 30,000 images organized in ever more helpful ways for teachers and preachers to help bring the scripture alive, not just with the word, but with the visualization that go to the word. And so I probably have 6 or 8 images that I'm going to be using in this little short vignette here that will come from Todd, and I encourage you to check out his resources when you get time appropriate. We have a phrase in our Western culture, jack of all trades, master of none. That doesn't even come close to surprising me. I'm master of almost none of those myself. But when it comes to Judean shepherd, I want to recast that, because I'm beginning to appreciate a Judean shepherd in the first century as a jack of all trades and the master of many. You see, he has to be, among other things, a veterinarian. He has to be an agronomist. He has to be a botanist. He has to be a geologist. And he has to be, and I'm going to use a $5 word here, a hydrologist, one who deals with the properties, the circulation, and the distribution of water. Or to put it in more common language here, he has to be a master of finding and managing a scarce resource in southern Israel, water. The word drought is a fear-evoking word to a shepherd, or to anyone actually living in Israel. And it's interesting, in Genesis 12, Abram leaves Beersheba and goes down to Egypt because it's a severe drought. That's the adjective used in the scriptural record. And Jesus draws upon that same adjective when he creates the construct called the parable of those good prodigal sons. Both of them are prodigal. We'll get to that a little bit later, okay? But he talks about a severe drought that ultimately ends up driving the younger son home, okay? So this word drought and severe drought is a terror-invoking word. And so one thing a shepherd has to do, you gotta know where your water is at any moment in time. You can never run out of it, and therefore this requires all sorts of planning and task on your part, including a good shepherd always knows where his watering holes are. In addition to that, he knows where springs are to be found in this barren, forsaken land. He needs to know where the wells are that have been previously dug. He even needs to be able to read rock formations in such a way that he has a pretty good probability of where he can successfully dig a new well. And that's probably in soft limestone, which is no small feat. And the average well is between 30 and 70 foot deep. No small effort. He has to know where his winter rain pools are. When they get the flash floods from the flash storms in the winter, where all the rain comes down in about maybe a 60-day window of time. Certain valleys and certain wadis have small dams in them and rock formations that divert water off into other low-lying areas. They become lagoons and they become pools. And a shepherd has to know where those are to draw upon them in the early part of the spring and late spring periods of time. He also has to know where his cisterns are. Cisterns are holes that are dug in the ground in soft limestone. But because soft limestone is porous, cisterns have to be plastered so that they can hold water without leaking it, okay? And there are cisterns all over this land. Here's a picture of one of them. You probably can't discern it here, but in the soft limestone toppage here, there's all sorts of grooves and little gullies that are being dug and etched. Because as the winter rains fall down, you're looking, but you probably can't see it. There's a vast collection system here that's funneling all these rivulets of water in these little channels down into this cistern. So then not only do you have to dig a cistern, you have to put a collection system in place to maximize the amount of water that you can retain from winter storms. Now here's another cistern. And what's fascinating about this one is look at the collar that's built up around it that will cause water by gravity to flow right down into this cistern, again, to maximize the collection of water so that you can properly bring your flocks to still water on a daily basis. But there's even more to what a shepherd has to do with. As I've already mentioned, he has to know where to dig wells, but he has to know how to best store and use his water. He has to understand when parasites are going to show up in the water as a function of the temperature and the time of the season that's unfolding. He has to understand the slopes of the hills and the terrain that he's in at the moment, particularly those that are going to be on the slope most removed from the sun's rays in the early morning. Typically that's the northern slopes, where the heavy morning dew will last the longest, and that's where he will start with his sheep to hydrate them, bring them to grass that has water on it. It's another way of providing water, this scarce resource for your flock. Okay? Then, having managed the water and collected it and knowing where it is and having it accessible, next is the art form as to how to feed sheep. And you need to water your sheep very, very carefully, because sheep are spooked by the sounds of running water. And there's a reason for that. Their thickest wool is found right underneath their chin on their front legs. And this wool absorbs water quickly like a wick. It's like a sponge soaking up water. Okay? Now here's a picture. Look at the thick wool here between the red bands underneath the neck of this particular sheep. And here's another one here. Look how thick and full the wool is right underneath the neck of this particular sheep. So part of a shepherd's care is this: to bucket the water out of the cistern and out of the well and to pour it into drinking troughs before the sheep see it even being done. So that by the time the sheep are exposed to it, it's already flat. So a good shepherd will keep his sheep out of view as he's preparing the water for them to drink. Or if he's approaching a lagoon or a pool, he has to discern the wind direction to make sure that there won't be too many ripples or small waves that will spook the sheep and keep them away from watering. Now here's a very creative watering device. It's like a single watering trough here. And notice it has a high edge on it on the right-hand side here. And by definition, it keeps that thick wool underneath the chin away from the water and helps the sheep feel very secure while drinking. Here's another example of a very gentle approach to a pond that will not frighten the sheep. So once again, they're comfortable, they're settled, and will drink from still waters that the shepherd brings them to. Here's another picture of a well that is drawn up, and then the water is poured out and it flows down into the lower watering trough here that you see on your left. And the shepherd may well get all this water in place in the watering trough part of this before he allows the sheep even to see it, okay? Again, so that they don't get spooked. Now, here's the call, and here's the challenge that strikes me that comes with these two little phrases, still water. Okay? Why wouldn't you confidently rest in the totality of this good shepherd's constant shepherding care, which includes a lot of things, including still, refreshing waters? Why wouldn't you wholeheartedly put your life into the hands of a shepherd like that? Possible answer: because you have a flawed view of God. You really don't understand the comprehensiveness and the totality and the constancy of his care as the perfect, the great, the good shepherd. And maybe you have a flawed view of yourself. We'll talk about that just a little bit later. Maybe you need to see yourself as a sheep more and more. Okay? Still waters, two little words, full of contextual meaning, and maybe even implicit with a challenge. Are you willing to place yourself in the care of a shepherd who said, "This I will provide you"? Shalom, shalom.